Good morning. It's another week. It's 8 days from the U.S. presidential election. This is the DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf. I'm joined by Riley Fessler, who was off on a secret mission last week. How did the secret mission go, Riley?
Really well. My friends were successfully married, which was, of course, my task. So,
You were responsible for it.
yeah,
And,
I take all the credit.
well, congratulations then. And, of course, Minna Stein. How are you, Minna?
I'm excited
Why is that? Because Riley's back?
because Riley's back. Yeah.
Wow. I'm
It
feeling the
just
love
changed.
today.
It changes everybody's life for the better. How's Ohio, Riley? Before we get into all the nitty gritty, you were there in Ohio, pretty red state, meeting, mingling with people. I'm sure you went up to everybody and said, "Who are you voting for?" What'd you learn?
Yeah, you know, I'm always reminded how red Ohio has become.
And your
Um,
friends? Are your friends red?
my friends are not, but some of the family members that we met with certainly were. But yeah, I mean, even the limited time I engaged with media there, just an absolute tsunami of political ads for both candidates. I would say I probably saw more for the Republicans, but I mean, it was like every ad break was all political ads all the time.
Oh, I thought when you
So
said engaged with media that there were paparazzi again following
yeah,
you.
no. Anytime I watched one
Republican
movie,
paparazzi.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
one movie on Hulu. It was all political ads, every ad break. So it's definitely full swing there.
Hulu for like $10 more a month, you don't have to watch the ads.
I know. I might have to shell out for that. It might be worth it.
Yeah, we know. I mean, granted, we're in a potentially ad-supported medium, but um, uh, you know, I can't stand the ads anymore. Anyway, nobody cares about that. Let's get into the news. Riley, did anything of note happen yesterday?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Donald Trump held his much anticipated rally at Madison Square Garden, aimed at rallying support ahead of Election Day, but it was marred by pro Trump comedian Tony Hinchcliffe's racist jokes, prompting widespread condemnation from both parties. Despite the backlash, Trump continued to advocate his hardline immigration policies during his speech. The event drew a large crowd of dedicated supporters, but the controversy largely overshadowed its intended purpose, which is not really at all shocking. Trump's campaign quickly disavowed Hinchcliffe's remarks, attempting to distance the former president from the offensive rhetoric. The most headline grabbing one was when he referred to Puerto Rico as an island of garbage, which is, wow, pretty shocking.
Well, that's not nice. That wasn't nice of him. It wasn't nice of him to say that Latinos, love making babies. It wasn't nice of him to say that when he would hang out with his black friends, they would carve watermelons together.
Oh my
Um,
God.
but
I didn't,
no,
I didn't even
it
hear about
was
that part. Holy
no, it was
shit.
I
not. It
didn't
was not.
either.
It was not great. But here's the point: he wasn't the only one. Every single person who got to the podium yesterday was a racist. Every single one of them said insane crap. One guy said we have to slaughter the Democrats. And he didn't mean in the election. Others talked about, you know, Stephen Miller got up and said America is for Americans and only for America. I mean, it sounded like a Nazi rally, and that's because a lot of people were comparing it to the 1939 German American Bund rally that took place in the old Madison Square Garden, and it wasn't, and the Republicans were like, well, it's not going to be like the German American Bund rally. It's unfair. Don't compare us to the Nazis. Well, I watched the video of the German American Bund rally last week, and I got to tell you something. It was anti-Semitic. It was gross. They beat up a Jewish guy on stage. It was nowhere as bad as yesterday's rally. They talked more about patriotism. They conducted themselves in a certain kind of way. These people, one after another, Rudy Giuliani, Dr. Phil, come on, Hulk Hogan, Don Jr., Eric, like, my daddy is the smartest man in the world. It was just pathetic. Don Jr., my dad is the king of New York, returning to reclaim his crown. Laura Trump. Donald Trump built New York. Um, Melania Trump. Blah 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 blah. I don't care about the little people. And then Trump himself offering an interminable speech, but the central core of every speech was enemy within, retribution, we're going to punish them, racism, we don't like Latinos, we don't like blacks, we don't like the LGBT. Byron Donald, that congressman, stood up and he said, well, the Democrats, they want to, give sex change operations to your kids at school. The CNN was carrying this thing. And then at a certain point, they pulled away and we said, all this is lies. We can't fact check all the lies, so we can't show it. So it was the perfect Trump formula of lies, racism, hate, and promises to make America worse tomorrow. It was a fascist rally. And I think it was disastrously bad for Trump because it is a week to go to the election. He could have changed the tone and moved away from the stories of last week, the stories of General Kelly and Mark Milley calling Trump a fascist. And they didn't do it. Instead, they doubled down on it. And all this week, the last week of the election, it's going to be Trump's campaign is racist, Trump's campaign is fascist, and they're just not going to be able to get away from it at all. I should point out, because Trump's not the only candidate in this race, that Kamala Harris was having a very good day politicking around Philadelphia. And as it happened yesterday, she announced a program for Puerto Rico, like a real government program. Here is what we will do to make the lives of people in Puerto Rico better. Meanwhile, the Republicans have this unfunny comedian on calling Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. I would just conclude, for all the Republicans who are saying, well, it was just a comedian, he didn't mean any of that. Donald Trump tried to trade Puerto Rico to Denmark for Greenland. Remember? He wanted to get rid of it. When Puerto Rico was hit by a hurricane, he didn't want to give them anything. When he was kind of shamed into going there, what did he do? He stood in front of a room full of people and tossed them rolls of paper towels. What? This guy is hideous. Oh, one more thing. Do you know how many Puerto Ricans live in the state of New York? 1 million. Do you know how many live in the city of New York? Almost 600,000. You know how many live in your home state of Florida, Minna?
A lot.
500,000 Puerto Ricans live in your home state of Florida. There are 150,000 or so that live in Pennsylvania, 50,000 that live in Michigan. This was so damaging politically. I hope it's the beginning of the end. Because as much as I love going on rants like this first thing on a Monday morning, I look forward to a time where we're like, well, Minna, the European Central Bank has taken an unexpected turn with its interest rates policy. It would be less entertaining, and I'm all for it. Anyway, do you have a story, Minna?
Yeah, I think that after hearing that rant, the only thing that we can do is get Johnson and McConnell together to tell Kamala Harris that she needs to tone down her rhetoric.
Yeah, right. Where Johnson yesterday said that Harris was socialist, I guess. I mean, it was, Trump said, she's a communist, she's a socialist, she's a fascist. The bad rhetoric comes from them, not from me.
Yeah. I'm, of course, being sarcastic because that was an insane thing for them to do, considering their candidate.
No doubt.
Well, my real story is A federal appeals court upheld a ruling that blocks Virginia officials from automatically canceling the voter registrations of suspected non-citizens just before a presidential election.
So your parents are in the clear.
Yes, me as well. Good thing I already voted. Illegally, of course.
Oh,
I won't have to vote again.
Uh-oh.
I won't have to vote again.
Don't make jokes. They're going to come for you. All right,
Exactly. The Fourth Circuit Court supported U.S. District Judge Patricia Tulliver Giles' decision that Virginia's recent voter purge plan, spearheaded by Governor Glenn Youngkin and the Attorney General, violates federal law prohibiting systematic voter purges within 90 days of a federal election. The court rejected Virginia's arguments on election integrity, agreeing with voter rights groups and such purges agreeing with voting rights groups that such purges risk disenfranchising eligible voters. While officials aim to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, the court offered the reinstatement of affected voters and a notification of the reversal to impacted individuals.
Well, good news, but bad news is this. As much as what Minna just said to you may have sounded like Charlie Brown's teacher, blah, 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 blah. No, Minna, you did a nice job delivering it. But most people, when you hear about voter registration, it's like, oh, God, really? Do I have to? Guess what, folks? Buckle your seatbelts. For the next 6 weeks, you're going to be hearing stories from the weirdest little counties where some Trump guy has come up with some crazy excuse for them to challenge an election result, because they're going to lose on Tuesday. They're going to be behind by Wednesday or Thursday or whenever all the votes come in. And then they're going to say, but wait, we were ahead in all these polls, which, by the way, Trump admitted the other day that he was paying for. They're going to say this must be rigged. And then we're going to be hearing more stories just like this one. Gargle, prepare your vocal cords, Minna. More of this to come. Riley, what's next?
Egyptian President el-Sisi proposed a 2-day ceasefire between Israel and Hamas to secure the release of 4 hostages held in Gaza, alongside delivering humanitarian aid and releasing some Palestinian prisoners. Talks are ongoing with Qatar as a mediator, but no official response has come from Israel or Hamas. Egyptian and international officials are pushing for a longer ceasefire, though Hamas demands an Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, which Israel refuses. At the same time, Israel has intensified attacks on Gaza and recently struck 2 Iranian military sites, raising regional tensions. As casualties rise, the UN has called the humanitarian situation in Gaza unbearable.
It is unbearable. The situation in northern Gaza, there are no functioning hospitals. It's the humanitarian crisis is reaching really extreme levels. And, we're distracted a little bit from it. I hope that our attention can return to it. But I got to say, Anthony Blinken and his team, they're working this. They are not being distracted by the election. The problem is, getting Israel and Hamas to agree to something. It's got to come soon, or we're going to start seeing headlines even more ghastly than we have already seen, hard as that is to believe. Minna?
The Georgian president has called for protest against the ruling Georgian Dream Party's victory in Saturday's parliamentary elections, claiming the results were fraudulent. The parties secured nearly 54% of the vote, but opposition parties and election monitors reported significant irregularities, including ballot stuffing and voter intimidation. The Georgian president, once aligned with Georgian Dream, described the election as a, quote, Russian special operation and urged citizens to gather and voice their dissent. The situation poses challenges for Georgia's aspirations for EU integration amid growing concerns over democratic backsliding and the party's increasing ties with Russia.
It's a tough situation there. There will be protests this week against the results. It was clearly a Russian op that I don't think is an exaggeration. And if Donald Trump wins, bing, 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 domino, domino, domino. You're going to see Russian influence extended by whatever means necessary almost immediately across Ukraine, because he'll pull back U.S. support. Even though the Ukrainians will fight without U.S. support, it's going to be very hard for them in Georgia, in Moldova, and elsewhere in the region. And that's why yesterday I saw some interviews with people in Georgia, and the vast majority of them said, oh no, I support Kamala Harris. I can't support Donald Trump. Bad for their country. When I was in Eastern Europe a couple months ago, they were all like, you can't do this to us. This would be a disaster. And it would be. What's the last story, Riley?
Unfortunately, it's also bad news. The UN warns that global efforts to combat climate change are severely off course as greenhouse gases accumulate at unprecedented rates, with atmospheric concentrations surging in 2023. Current national plans to cut emissions by 2030 fall drastically short, projecting only a 2.6% reduction instead of the 43% needed to keep warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Worsening the situation, forests are reportedly losing their carbon absorbing capacity, with the Amazon now emitting more CO2 than it absorbs. This feedback loop, alongside rising emissions from fossil fuels and extreme weather events, threatens to accelerate global warming, risking drastic temperature increases and sea level rises unseen for millions of years.
One of the worst things that could happen to the planet Earth is that Donald Trump could get reelected. Sorry to be in a theme. There's 8 days left in the election campaign. But Donald Trump doesn't believe in global warming. The Republican Party, as a matter of policy, opposes global warming. They oppose doing anything with regard to climate mitigation. They want to reverse the progress that was made under the Biden administration, which did more, and I should call it the Biden-Harris administration, which did more on green energy investment and climate than any administration in U.S. history. But, Donald Trump, when he starts talking about this, as he did the other day, he starts going, well, this is all a hoax. And, the whales are being driven crazy by the windmills. And they're beaching themselves because of the wind and the windmills. And, and everybody sort of laughs. But if you get a guy like that in office, and the U.S. doesn't lead as it must as the world's richest, most powerful nation, we're not going to address these problems. And it's not abstraction. Minna Stein is a global warming, climate change refugee. Right? I mean, that's what you are. That's what
true.
happened.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not the only one. I mean, aren't there people leaving where you lived in coastal Florida for just this reason?
Mm-hmm. And not always because they want to.
No, it's
because they have to.
You don't want to be here. You don't want to be talking to us in the morning. I understand. I know what that message meant. I'm a little hurt, frankly, Riley. Are you hurt?
I'm hurt.
Yeah. Why is Minna so mean on a Monday morning?
Every morning I wake up, do this podcast, and wish I was back on the beach.
Well, I don't blame you. I wish I was on a beach someplace, but soon we'll all be on a beach. We keep going the way we're going.
Very true.
Anyway, tomorrow is 1 week to the election. Tomorrow night on the Ellipse, in the same spot that Trump called his crowd together and turned them on the Capitol, Kamala Harris will be making her final pitch, if you will, her home stretch framing of the election. That's certainly something to watch. And who knows what comedians Trump will have hired between now and then to insult what groups. It could be anybody, because they hate everybody if you're not a white male Christian. I mean, if you're not a white male Christian, and by the way, if you're a white male gay Christian or trans Christian, they hate you too. So they're even white male Christians that they don't like Riley, for example. They don't like Riley. He's he's one of the enemy from within. I hope you realize that, Riley. I hope
Good.
yeah, good.
I want to
Sign
be.
us. That's exactly. Sign us up here, folks. We're gonna change this to the enemy within radio.
That might not do well for our growth and branding.
Well, if Trump wins, maybe, that was what we were trying to do with Deep State Radio. But people, well, they'll come after the Deep State too. It may still remain relevant. I was kind of hoping it wouldn't be. We had discussions 4 or 5 years ago, like, well, when we leave the era of Trump, we're going to have to just change everything. That's why this is called the DSR Daily, not the Deep State Radio Daily, because we thought, well, soon no one will remember what the Deep State was.
Yeah.
Got that one wrong. Anyway,
hasn't aged too well.
Yeah, no, hasn't aged too well. All right, guys, have a great week. Enjoy it. Everybody listening, have a great week. Enjoy it. Vote. Get somebody else to vote. Donate money. Make phone calls. Post things on your website. Do something every day for the next 8 days to ensure the outcome of this election is the outcome you want. Apathy will be our undoing. Activism will ensure that we win. Talk to you soon. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.